Welcome back to story time. All right. Fun part is I was practicing which way would be the best on this, and I decided on this. But if you want to see the other intros at the end, feel free. I decided to start putting bloopers. So today's video is going to be called Why I'm No Longer Allowed to Buy Betta Fish and Why I'm Banned from PetSmart. Just kidding on that one. So, years ago, if you saw my last story with how I burned water, same situation. It was probably maybe not even a month after that. So, newlywed, and I had decided to buy my wife at the time a betta fish. So I bought the little betta fish, and if you've ever seen betta fish in the store, they usually come with a little teeny container. So I got the little teeny housing. I can't call it a tank, they're more like a cup. But I even got really cool like glow-in-the-dark stones for the bottom. They were pretty cool. So I had all this set up, we had it put in the kitchen, and it worked. Now, she'd had this thing for maybe a week or so, and I decided in my brilliant brain that I was gonna be an amazing husband and take care of this betta fish. So what did I decide to do? I decided I was gonna go ahead and clean the cup. Like I said, I can't call it a tank. I was gonna go ahead and clean the cup. So I took the betta fish out, put it into a little cup on its own, set it off to the side. Now, while I was cleaning the betta fish cup, I decided I was gonna make something for my lunch for that day. So I quickly just threw in, I think it was like a pot pie into the oven. And yes, this was early in the morning. So I was like, oh, I'll clean this betta fish tank, I'll make my lunch, and then I'll just go to work. So I preheat the oven for the pot pie, chuck the pot pie in there, and I'm cleaning this little teeny tank thing, little teeny cup. I take the greatest care in washing off each one of the stones and, really scrubbing this whole tiny cup tank thing. And the betta is perfectly fine, it's just chilling. Now, yes, I keep fish in my pockets. Yes, that looks a lot like Dory.
Just keep swimming, just keep swimming.
All right, so I'm cleaning this tank, and the little fish is swimming around in some little cup. I finish cleaning this teeny little cup tank thing. That works, cup tank thing. I put the fish back into the little tank, and it's swimming all happily, it's fine. It's a betta fish. It works. So I finish, so I put it off to the side. The oven goes off, I take my pot pie out, close the oven, and I'm like, okay, I'm all done. I put my pot pie in my little lunch bag. I go ahead and just put the betta fish tank. I'm trying to clean off the counter now because I've just made a mess of it with all the water and all the chemicals. So I cleaned off the entire counter. So I moved the little betta fish tank cup thing over to the stove. And I'm wiping everything off. I get done, I'm like, you know what? Awesome, I am just in time. I can go ahead and go to work. So I take my lunch and I leave for work. Now, upon coming home, I walk into the kitchen and I realize two things very quickly. One, there's still a timer of 300 degrees, or not a timer, but there's still a degree of 300 degrees. I'll readout of 300 degrees on the oven. And I was like, I left the oven on all day long and I was gone for a full 8-hour shift. This is not good. So I quickly turn off the oven. While I'm turning off the oven, I happen to look down into this little cup tank thing that I've left on the stove. This is the second sudden thing I noticed. Because the betta fish is not swimming around all happily in this little cup tank. Oh no, it looks like it's taking a nap. It is on its side, like so. However, the lump, or lack thereof, this is about how its body looked. It went up to about where its head is, and then it dipped down, came back up, and then finished. Apparently, the water had heated up, so when I dipped my finger in, the water had heated up from the oven. I wasn't thinking, hey, convection heat happens. The water had heated up enough to boil the poor fish, and it blew its brains out. So the fish is now just laying on the top of the water, its head concave, whatever. And all of its brains are now floating in the water next to it. So I decided, rather than getting chewed out for that, yes, I promptly flushed the fish. I flushed the fish and quickly cleaned out the tank, and I set it off to the side in the closet. So when my wife got home and she went to check on her poor little betta fish, her first question was, "Where's my betta?" And I said, see, I kinda left it on the stove with the oven turned on all day. But hey, at least I didn't burn the house down. Yay for me. She was not happy with that. So, in my infinite wisdom, I decided, you know what, I should really replace what I killed. And betta number 2 comes into play. So, I'm like, you know what, I am so sorry. I will go and get you another betta fish, and I'll be right back. So, I go to PetSmart, and I get another betta fish. Didn't need any of the other accessories, I just got the betta fish, which was a little awkward to explain to the cashier, not the cash register person. It was a little awkward to explain to them because when I walked up and they said, "Hey, well, do you need the tank or the rocks?" And I said, "No, I've already got that." And they went, "Oh, you do?" And I said, "Yeah, I just happened to kill the last one on accident." Didn't think, hey, I don't need to give you an explanation because you're just here to take my money. But it was like, yeah, I kind of accidentally fried the fish. And they're like, "Oh, okay." And I was like, anyway, taking my fish and I'm gonna go home now. Little did I know. So I get home and I put it in the same little tank, and it's good for a couple of days. Now, there's a little bit more backstory that you need to know about this. We had at the time, because of other family members, we had some African cichlids. If you've never heard of them before, they are very, very colorful, but they're not saltwater fish. Thank goodness, they're just freshwater fish, but they get really, really pretty. They are also very territorial. They are a very aggressive fish. And in my mind, I was like, hey, the betta fish is lonely. It's only got itself in that little tank. And before you say betta fish are territorial as well, they like their alone time. Yeah, I know that now. So I decided, infinite wisdom, to take this poor little betta fish and pour it into the tank of probably 15 African cichlids, and I left for the day. I keep doing these things without watching what happens. I just do it and then leave. Whatever. So I pour it in and I leave for the day. Well, I come home. My wife comes home, my then wife at the time, and she's like, "Where's my betta fish?" And this time I was like, "Oh, no, you're good. I didn't kill it. I put it in the tank with the African cichlids." And she goes, "Wait, you what?" So, well, yeah, I figured it was lonely. It wanted some friends. And she goes, "Betta fish don't work that way. They prefer to be, that's why they're in their own little tank. That's the entire point of betta fish." And I went, "Oh, well, I figured it was lonely, so I put it in the tank." At which point she goes off into the other room to look at the tank. Comes back a moment later and says, "Hey, I don't see the betta fish anywhere." I'm like, "Well, it can't be that hard to find. It's a totally different color," because this one was a bright blue, just like Dory. And I was like, "It can't be that hard to find. It's probably just hidden in the little fake grass or the little castle thing or whatever of the ornaments we had in there." So I walk in and we're looking. I'm looking, and I even take the little fishnet thing and I'm going through the grass and I'm tilting stuff over and moving other fish around, and I'm even putting special care around the filter because I don't want it stuck in the filter. Help me, I'm stuck. So, Finding Nemo, deal with it. So I'm looking everywhere in this fish tank for it. I can't find it. I'm looking up high, I'm looking in the little different crevices, maybe in a corner somewhere. Nothing. I was like, that's really weird. And all the other fish are there and they're fine. I was like, huh. I don't know, it must be hiding somewhere really, really well. Or, and yes, you can mock me all you want, but in my head, for just a moment, I floated the idea of, well, maybe if a pigeon came through the non-existent open window and picked it up, took off with it. Hey, we've all seen Finding Nemo. That pelican could have taken those fish at any point. This was Utah, so there's no pelicans, but this said the point. maybe a pigeon. And I even jokingly, I'm like, well, maybe a bird came in and took it. She didn't find that funny. I found it hilarious. So I walk out of the room. About 5 minutes later, I hear, I found it. But it's not a happy I found it. It's a, like, oh no, I found it kind of thing. But I found it for you kind of message. So I look in the tank and I'm like, where? I'm just looking for a little fish somewhere, or even at the top floating. In the middle of all the gravel sat said fish. I didn't kill it. It wasn't dead. But it wasn't moving either. Just sitting at the bottom of said tank, not moving. Why was it not moving? In fact, it might have been tilted over. Why was it not moving? Because the African cichlids had decided, I did not realize, even though African cichlids, bunch of static noise, cichlids are a lot like sharks. Yes, I carry fish in my jacket pocket.
Hello?
Are a lot like sharks. You don't see sharks attacking each other, but they will attack everything else. Did not think about that. And while I didn't have sharks in the tank, shark down! While I didn't have sharks in the tank, did have African cichlids. And what they had decided to do was, they had all ganged up on this poor betta fish, and they had proceeded to bite the fins, all the fins, off of the poor betta fish. So it was a little blue blob just sitting at the bottom of the tank. Couldn't move. Couldn't do anything else. But for the record, it was in fact alive. Permanently a quadriplegic? Well, let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Is it sectiplegic? Still alive, but couldn't move. So I dutifully scooped up the betta fish, put it in said toilet, and flushed. And that's the time when I walked back into the room and my ex-wife told me, you are no longer allowed to buy betta fish. And this wasn't something I could argue with. And I just looked and went, yeah, no, you're totally right. I won't buy any more betta fish. And I haven't to this day. That poor betta fish. Seriously, what do you call 6? And I feel so dumb because this is something a 5th grader would know. Septagon? So septiplegic? If I'm right, I'm going to be so happy. I'm going to look that up later on. Septiplegic. That's a thing. Oh, that poor fish. All right. And that is it for story time and why I'm no longer allowed to buy a betta fish. So that's it for story time. If you have any funny fish stories or fish tales, go ahead and comment down below. I do try to answer all the comments, which are few, but hey, it works. So enjoy, and I hope you have a very fishy day. Na-na, 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 na-na. Ah. Welcome back to story time. Welcome back to story time. Welcome back to this episode of Story Time. Welcome back to Story Time! It's gonna kill your ears. Welcome back to Story Time. Welcome back to Story Time. This is going to be a lovely episode where I talk like this the entire time. I totally forgot what I was going to call this episode. It'll come to me. Give me a minute. Nope. Flushed the fish. Flushed the fish. Permanently a quadriplegic? Well, let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Is it sectoplegic? Yes, I am terrible with my shapes. Deal with it. Not a quadriplegic, 'cause it has like what, 6? But it wasn't moving anymore.